again and welcome to the Cases channel, where today we would be studying the expenditure method in macroeconomics. We have already covered the value added method and the income method. So today we discuss the third method, which is the expenditure method. So what does the expenditure method involve? This includes all the expenditures, or we add all the expenditures which are incurred on all the final goods and services produced within one accounting year in the domestic territory of a country. So what do we calculate first here? When we add all those expenditure on final goods and services, we get the GDP at market price, or gross domestic product at market price. Remember, in value added method, we first used to calculate the gross domestic product at market price, whereas in income method, again we used to calculate the net domestic product at factor cost. Now in expenditure method, we calculate the GDP at market price. So how do we calculate it? What are the different components of the formula? One is the private final consumption expenditure. Second, government final consumption expenditure. Third, gross investment. Fourth, export minus import. So there are four components to this formula. So private final consumption expenditure, add to that the government final consumption expenditure, add to that gross investment, plus net exports, which is given by exports minus import. Export is indicated or denoted by X, and import is denoted by M. So now let us quickly go through the different components. Private final consumption expenditure, which includes two components: consumption, which is done by the household, as well as by the non-profit private organizations. Which are the non-profit private organizations? Well, they are NGOs which work for community service, such as HelpAge India, CRY, Pratham. These NGOs, they don't work to earn profit, but they help for community service. They might distribute food or different goods. So that's why they do the purchases, or they're involved in consumption. Now again, let's look at the second component, which is the government final consumption expenditure. Now remember, government makes two kinds of expenses or expenditures. First, government acts as an investor or as a producer, such as it acts as the owner or of public enterprises. Take the example of National Thermal and Power Corporation, Indian Oil Corporation. So there the government is acting as a producer. Or SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited, ONGC, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. So again, there the government is acting as a producer, so it makes investment. But then government also acts as a consumer. You might ask, how? Well, government purchases goods and services and provides it free of cost, or it purchases goods and services for defense forces, to maintain law and order, for midday meals. So it procures goods and serves midday meals to the students in government schools or government aided schools, providing free healthcare facilities. So here in these activities, the government is acting as a consumer. So it purchases goods and services to make it available to these different areas or for these different purposes that we have just discussed. So the total expenditure incurred by the government on this is treated as government final consumption expenditure. Then gross investment, which includes gross fixed investment. It is also called gross fixed capital formation, because investment leads to capital formation, or gross domestic fixed capital formation, plus inventory investment. Now inventory investment is nothing but, or is equal to, closing stock minus opening stock. Then again, one more important thing to remember, that gross fixed capital formation or gross fixed domestic capital formation, or you can call it gross fixed investment, has three components. So either if the components are given, you add all the three together, or if gross fixed investment is given and even the components are given, just add gross fixed investment. You don't need to add components again because they are already included in gross fixed investment. So these three components are business investment done by the business houses, plus investment by households on residential constructions. So when the households or invest money, or they are involved in constructing their residential houses, okay, so the money that they invest, or the expenditure that they incur on construction of residential houses, that is also treated as a fixed investment. It's a part or a component of gross fixed investment. And third is public investment, when the government makes investment for the construction of roads, dams, bridges, etc. That is public fixed investment. So you have business fixed investment by households or residential construction, plus public fixed investment. These all together add up to or form the gross fixed investment. And inventory investment, now then we need to add inventory investment as well. Inventory investment would include closing stock minus opening stock. Now remember, sometimes I've noticed that in questions these students get confused when it says net fixed investment. So you might be given net fixed investment in a question. So it is simple. Add net fixed investment plus inventory investment, add depreciation to that, so then you will get gross investment. And if you're not adding depreciation to that, remember that when you make the final adjustment, then do not subtract depreciation again. Okay, we'll discuss this now. As we discuss numericals, we'll find that out. Now here, add to that net exports, which is exports minus imports. Why do we add exports and why do we subtract imports? Now you need to remember that what do we export? We export the final goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory of our country, and they are purchased by the foreign countries, right? Or the businessmen from foreign countries that buy our goods and services. So since these goods and services are produced in the domestic territory of our country, that is India, or any country under consideration, so exports are always added. And imports, now remember, what do we import? We import goods and services that are produced in a different country, in a different domestic territory. So when we purchase them, we cannot include them, or the expenditure that we incur on them, they are not the expenditure on the goods that are produced in our domestic territory, right? So they have to be subtracted. So remember, exports will always be added, imports will be subtracted. So net exports will be added, net imports would be subtracted. Now this is what I was saying here. So now how do we calculate the national income? By adding all these four components, that is private final consumption expenditure, government final consumption expenditure, gross investment plus export minus import, what do we get? We get gross domestic product at market. So now we know that we have discussed that we get GDP at market price by adding the private final consumption expenditure plus government final consumption expenditure plus gross investment and net exports, which is export minus import, or if we are given net imports, we simply subtract it from all these three components. So we get GDP at market price. Now how do you get the national income from it? When we have the gross domestic product at market price, we subtract depreciation from it, so then you would get net domestic product at market price. And then again, when you subtract net indirect taxes from it, which is the NIT, or denoted by NIT here, then you would get net domestic product at factor cost, which is also known as the domestic income. Remember, always net domestic product at factor cost, or NDP at factor cost, is the domestic income. How do you convert it into national income? Add net factor income from abroad to it. You would get net national product at factor cost, which is also known as the national income. And if you have net factor income to abroad, always subtract it. Remember, net factor income from abroad needs to be added, net factor income to abroad needs to be subtracted. Okay, then finally you get net national product at factor cost, which is your national income. One more thing, sometimes instead of net factor income from abroad or net factor income to abroad, you might be given factor income from abroad and factor income to abroad. In that case, you need to add factor income from abroad and subtract factor income to abroad. You would get net factor income from abroad. Okay, and if net factor income from abroad sometimes is given in minus, subtract it. So in that case simply subtract it. Okay, then you would get the net national product at factor cost, which will be your national income. And sometimes in question it asks GNP at factor cost, okay, or GNP at market price. Very simple. Whenever if it says GNP at market price, simply GDP at MP plus NFIA would give you GNP at market price. If it's asking you for GNP at factor cost, add depreciation to the end, or simply don't subtract the depreciation. Okay, so you would get gross national product at factor cost. Alright, so different aggregates, that how you can deal, you can refer to my previous video where we discuss the aggregates and you will be able to easily calculate it. Okay, and one more thing which I wanted to point out was, remember I discussed earlier that gross fixed capital formation, the gross fixed capital formation. Now remember, in the question, gross investment always has two components, gross fixed investment and inventory investment. These two components are there. However, sometimes in questions in the numericals it is only given net fixed investment. So in that case what is happening, it doesn't have depreciation. So to get gross investment you need to add depreciation to the net fixed investment plus inventory investment. But if you are not adding it, so either if you are adding the depreciation here, then in that case you get the GDP at MP. Then what is happening, you get the GDP at MP here, this GDP at MP, you are getting it. Okay, but what if you do not add it? Coming back here to the gross fixed investment. Okay, what if net fixed investment was given here instead of gross fixed investment? Okay, and you did not add depreciation to it. In that case here you would be not getting GDP at MP, you would be getting NDP at MP. So remember, do not subtract depreciation again from it to get the national income. Simply you just need to remember this. Okay, and your values will be correct. So if you are given gross fixed investment, no problem, just add that in inventory investment, you would get the gross investment component. Add all the four components, you would get GDP at MP, subtract depreciation, subtract NIT, add NFIA, you would get national product at factor cost. Hope you enjoyed the session today. If there's any doubt, you can always contact me at my Instagram channel that I would be posting on this. You would get the link here. And further, please stay tuned for different videos on various topics of economics, business studies and accountancy. We would be discussing one by one, and from now onwards you would be getting the videos on a regular basis. Please, if you liked the video, do share with your friends, subscribe to it and give a thumbs up to my video. Thank you for viewing my lessons. Have a good day.